Hello everyone, The Nerdy Steve here, and today we will be featuring Mono Green and Explore. The list is in the description below. I'm going to talk about a little of the plan of the deck, and then we'll play a couple of matches, or games. So, let's go. This deck, again, there's a lot of different ways to play Mono Green and to build Mono Green. This is still kind of the general shell, which we've seen before. We have our 8 1-drop. So Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves are kind of ubiquitous now in these green aggressive decks. They allow us to more reliably cast our 3 drops on turn 2, which is a really good way to get ahead. Again, Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves, that redundancy is just very important. But additionally, we can now get a 3rd-turn Collected Company to get all of our powerful 3 drops out of nowhere. And so that's kind of the general plan of this deck. Cool cards in this version are Vivien, Monster's Advocate, and the Great Henge. These are ways for us to, even without Collected Company, to generate a lot of card advantage over a couple of turns to overwhelm our opponent if that plan doesn't work out, or it's just extra redundancy. Great Henge is also really good. It was a powerful full card in standard, and we also have, the ability to, do it on, what is it, the 4th turn after, or 3rd turn after you Steel Leaf Company on the 2nd turn is just gonna be too good for a lot of decks to, combat you. And I also like to point out, and something that I think makes this deck particularly good in Best of 1 is main deck graveyard interaction really helps in a lot of very different matchups, because there are a lot of graveyard strategies in Explorer right now, and if you don't have main deck interaction, you kind of really lose a lot of percentage points to those decks game matchup wise. And so Scavenging Ooze can sometimes just really make it impossible for the different Greasefang decks or whatever to have a really winning game plan against you, specifically when you're providing all this extra really aggressive pressure onto them. Now, with all that being said, let's go play a couple of games and see how it works. So this is our plan, right? We have a turn 1 Elvish Mystic, which is going to allow us to turn 2 Steel Leaf, Old Growth Troll. And this is gonna be really, our opponent has to have responses for everything we're doing, otherwise they're gonna fall behind very quickly. So Lofty Denial was something, expected here. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have 3 counter spells, though this Curious Obsession on the Terramander isn't ideal for us, because now our opponent has a lot more interaction and the pressure we have isn't going to be nearly as effective as it should be. Imagine if we played first and we were able to get the turn 2 Steel Leaf Champion when our opponent had just tapped out for a Terramander. The game becomes so completely different, right? And that's just one of the parts of being on the player draw in Best of 1. There is a possibility maybe I'm supposed to attack with both Elvish Mystics to make our opponent block or to deal damage before we cast something that they can counter and then pump up the Cutthroat. So maybe that was a mistake. Our opponent did have the opt, so it would have been a free eat on our Elvish Mystic, but it is something that I could have considered, right? Our opponent's getting so much card advantage here. It wouldn't surprise me if they had the tap Merfolk to interact with us. Yeah, this is just not great. I'm gonna go to combat, so, alright. Maybe we should have... I was trying to bait out a Merfolk trap, whatever. But maybe that just was a little too... interesting. Okay, our opponent GG'd us. I'm assuming they have something to tap our Lair here. Let's do X equals 3. Or a bounce spell for the Lair is also good enough. Or hopefully our opponent doesn't have anything. That was a very premature GG. Who knows? Opt, okay. Oh, that's great. So we go first, and this means we're going to have a turn 2 Steel Leaf champion, which is going to be really great for us. Again, you can't really stress enough how good this start is for people. Or against different people. What's also really good about Steel Leaf Champion is it requires your opponent, even against Fatal Push decks, if your opponent doesn't kill the Llanowar Elves, right? You still... Like, Steel Leaf Champion can't be Fatal Pushed without anything else happening. And that feels wonderful. I think, do we just do that, or do we get the Trample card? I'm gonna then do the Elvish Mystic here. I was playing around Disruption. Sorry. I was playing around Disruption, Jawari Disruption, and I guess Disruption in general. But, like, this is ideally how our deck works, right? We just come out so quickly that it's so hard for an opponent to keep up. A Wrath of God or a Supreme Verdict would be really good, but that's not going to happen for another turn. It is something we do need to be aware of, though. So we're going to attack here. Opponent's going to go to 4. We're keeping back an Elvish Mystic, so if our opponent does tap out for a Supreme Verdict, we can tap the Elvish Mystic for mana, and then Collected Company after, yeah. So we're going to do this. And then we get to Collected Company now. And things would have to go terribly wrong for us to not have something to do here. And they didn't, so... Good game. So we'll keep again. And same thing as last time. This deck is very consistent in how it... and how it performs and what it wants to do. Turn 1, Mana Dork. Into a turn 2 Steel Leaf Champion, followed by another 3-drop. It is reliable and simple and effective, so why change? Right? Opponent has some really cool snow-covered lands, but we also have the new forests that are on Arena, and these are pretty epic. Alright, so doing that to deal an extra damage with the Mausoleum Wanderer. Do we just attack and have them trade the Rattle Chains with that? I think that's worth it for us. Right? That has to be. Because it's another... It's one less spirit we have to worry about tapping down our board if our opponent casts the Geist Shackler. Yeah. So our opponent... It looks like our opponent doesn't have a lot of aggressive stuff going on. And this is why they're trying to pump up the Mausoleum Wanderer. So we'll do that to make it a 5/5. But now, like, this is... We're going to have a lot of lethal threats. The Supreme Phantom does... Okay, GG. Okay. We're going to keep this. This, we do not have a really good second turn play with, you know, Old Growth Troll or the Steel Leaf Champion. But, you know, Kazandu Mammoth isn't the worst. And if our opponent is mono red, Scavenging Ooze is pretty decent against them, so we're fine. Fine, we'll see what happens. Runaway Steamkin. Ooh, I wonder... So I kind of want to Ooze here... Mystic, and then I want to fight this Steamkin because maybe they're an elemental combo deck and we want it die, or if they're just a regular aggressive mono red deck, we want to get the Steamkin out of there so their engine doesn't get going. Yeah, with Burning Tree Emissary, like a lot of bad stuff could have potentially happened here. Yeah. So glad I did that. Very glad. But now... So we want to make sure we kill the trade with the Annex. This means also our opponent probably doesn't have Embercleave, because I think you try and save Embercleave on Annex. Runaway Steamkin, okay. Let's attack here. Opponent has to take the 5. Unless something magical happens with maybe Infuriate. But none of those creatures can block. Our opponent's probably going to double block the Mammoth. That's fine. And then we Steel Leaf Champion and Ooze. Using up our mana. Beautiful. And right now the double Steel Leaf Champions are unblockable unless our opponent can pump up Steamkin to a 4/4. Which is possible, but am I worried? Not really. Being at 21 this late against a mono red deck is really, really good. So our opponent is going to go down to 2 life here. We do block. Oh, and also, wait, we can just pump, right? 1. So I think it's lethal. I'll let our opponent do the math. Oh, it didn't give it trample? Oh, I thought that gave it trample. The more you know, everyone. Ouch. I mean, we're fine. We're fine. Right? Who needs to do math anyway? Oh, and there was an Embercleave in hand. Maybe it was drawn afterwards. But we're so fine. The more you know, everyone. The more you know. Well, everyone, thank you for watching me play some Mono Green and Explore. This deck was great. I love it. It is consistent. It is reliable. The problem here, as you may have saw if you watch, is my one critique with any deck with Collected Company is sometimes your Collected Company fails you, and that sucks. But you know, you have to take the wins with the losses, and sometimes Collected Company finds you nothing but bad things. And you know what? That's okay. We didn't get to see Vivien in action, but Vivien would have gotten us out of maybe some problematic situations and is in general a very, very good card. And I would like to see her in more action. I don't know if she's better or worse than the Great Henge, but different enough to merit, trying out. But overall, this deck is fantastic, and I highly, highly recommend playing it because there also is some nuance to the decisions. It may have, like, not seemed like it, right? But, specifically when it comes to Primal Might and deciding, how you the difference between Steel Leaf Champion and Old Growth Troll, if you have both of those in your hand on turn 2 and can cast them, I still don't know what is in general the better or worse option, and obviously it's going to be deck dependent in what you want to do, but that is something that it seems like such a minute decision, but they are very, very different cards, and they are better in different scenarios and against different decks. And it is something that, takes a little bit to figure out. Again, you're not going to necessarily go wrong, whichever one, but there are these minute decisions that do add up, and it is something to consider. And so, like, that's what, again, just like with Mono Red, a lot of people, and I say this all the time, a lot of people, just go, oh, it's, a very easy deck to pilot. It's very, very simple. And just because you kind of have a really linear game plan doesn't mean you are going to be performing at the optimal rate every single turn. So just put that out there. Play it. It's great. You'll do well with it. And I can't wait to make another version of this deck. Primal Might and the other fight spells are always very interesting. Which ones people like more? You could go Snow for Blizzard Brawl 2 if you want. And so there's a lot of different ways to build these decks. With all that being said, if you haven't already, you should totally like, comment, or subscribe. Or go follow me at twitch.tv/TheNerdOfSteve, where you can catch me stream live. And yeah, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And thanks for watching. Bye.